Wow. What a year. What a year. And how wonderful it is that we are bringing to close another year, another trip around the sun. It's always kind of fascinating to me that we build this whole thing up about end of the year and new beginnings and all that sort of thing. And it's what we do. But, we can do that at any point. It's just the culture says, let's do this. And so some of us are, I don't know about you, I always go through a deep reflection at this point of the year, looking at where I've been, looking what I set as intentions for the year, how I did, how I didn't do, what I accomplished, what I almost accomplished, what I decided early on that I really didn't care anyways, but it sounded nice at the time. All of those things, right? Every once in a while I say, I'm going to start doing, resolutions differently, like gain more weight, drink more, all those sorts of things, right? And they're like, yes, I did it. Yay me. Exactly. Yes, exactly. It's so good, right? But it is a wonderful time. And I know for me personally, it's, this is completing my first year, having the privilege of serving as the senior minister of the community. And what a blessing that has been for me. And being in this adventure together of creating something new and carrying forward what has been. And it's magnificent. And like any magnificent experience, it challenges us, right? Have you noticed that? When growth is occurring in our life, it tends to be uncomfortable. Have you noticed that? Or is it just me, right? When we're growing, one of the ways we know we're growing is it is uncomfortable, it is unknown, it's unexpected. There's these things that happen because what I always like to say is what is comfortable, we talk about the comfort zone, what is comfortable is what is known, and what is comfortable and what is expected is right here. I feel comfortable here. And I say, well, I want to change my life. I want to grow. I'm going to set these goals. And that causes me to step out of that into the unknown, into the uncomfortable, so that I can expand and become the person that I want to become. And then we get into that phase and we're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I wanted the change that would just happens, right? Isn't there a pill for this? It just happens, right? So it's all good. I always know that when I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing, and I always feel blessed by it. Eventually, sometimes I have to spend some time in pre-gratitude before I actually get to gratitude. But we are blessed as we look at the blessings in our lives that were easy to recognize. There's blessings that show up in our lives that are easy to recognize. The demonstration of what we've been praying for, the manifestation of a vision, or all of those things. Wow, what a blessing. And sometimes the blessings in our lives are those things that are unexpected. The blessings that are disguised as something else. The blessings of a breakdown, or of a failure, or of a loss. We say, this isn't a blessing. Not yet. But when we stay with it, when we remember who we are, then we ultimately find the blessing that was there. We experience the new lives that have come into our being, into our experience. New little earth forms have joined us this last year. Some of you have showed me pictures of them on your phone, right? Grandbabies and nieces and nephews and children. New beings have come, and also beings have left this planet for their next experience of life. All of those I call as blessings. You see, it's never easy to let go of people that we loved, even though we spiritually know that they're not their physical form, they're spiritual being, but when they actually leave the planet, there's a natural and normal grieving process that happens. And I think we do well to allow that. Allow ourselves. One of the things I realized this year is I can know more than one thing at once. I can experience more than one thing at once. I can experience joy and loss at the same time. I can experience love and anger at the same time. You see, wow, who knew? Multidimensional. Who knew, right? And so as we're grieving the loss of what has gone away, it's perfectly good. And those of us that are spiritually, or at least working to be spiritually aware, recognize that it's all, at the level of form, everything is changing. Everything is constantly changing at the level of form. Atoms are just spinning around like crazy all the time. We're spinning around on a planet. We're going pretty fast, it turns out. It doesn't feel like it because you're just like, I woke up and got out, put on my shoes and walked the dog, but I'm on a planet that's spinning around really quickly, right? Life is changing, life is evolving, life is becoming. But there's that part of us, that eternal essence, that spiritual being that we are learning to connect with, so that when the outer changes, when the form of our lives are changing, we remember who we are. And so we're learning to have an experience of something. I was reminded recently about sometimes people will talk about their illness as if they own it. Right? My arthritis, or my this, or my that. And one of the things I've come to realize is that I'm just a spiritual being having an experience. Maybe it is the appearance of arthritis, but that's not me. I'm a spiritual being having this experience. And when I can remember that, it allows me to remain at peace. It allows me to grow. It allows me to evolve. So all of the blessings of this year bring us to this point. As I said, New Year's Eve is traditionally a time when we reflect on what has been, what worked, what didn't, what we've learned, how have we grown, what's left. And then as we move into the new year, we start to look at how do I want this year to be different? Some people sat down and write resolutions. I've got tons of them if anybody needs any of them. Right? But I stopped doing that because I realized there was something more to this process. That it's not about what do I want to do this year, or what do I want to accomplish this year, or what do I want to have happen, although those are all good. It really comes down to who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? You see, much of the world will tell us that so much of our conditioning says, if you will change your circumstances, you will be happy, you will be fulfilled, you will be all of these things. If you have more money, then you'll have freedom. If you have a divine or perfect relationship, then you're going to be happy. If you have the better job, if you have the new car, if you have the bigger home, all of that stuff, we're bombarded by that message over and over and over. And so many people are in search of making their conditions better. And then sometimes you get to that new point, and you realize this is like the old point. Bigger house. Same stuff, right? So in our teaching, we would say that what we want to be looking at is how do we change at an inner level that makes those things welcome. There's a wonderful, I was looking at a wonderful book by a gentleman many of you know, T. Harv Eker. Wonderful book called The Secrets of the Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. Not Secrets of a Millionaire, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And what he talks about in that is how we all sort of have this thermostat that we have set. About how we set a thermostat, and thermostats are wonderful because they adjust the temperature. Gets too hot in the room, it cools off, or gets too cold, it heats it up. It's a wonderful thing. And so we set the thermostat, and it's lovely. It keeps us at this ideal temperature. Often what we don't realize is that we have an internal thermostat. And that internal thermostat is those things that we have set for ourselves that says, this is how much good I can allow in my life. Now, he talks a lot of times in terms of money, but money's just one more of the things. But how much love can I experience? How much joy can I experience? How many, wonderful, loving, supportive relationships can I allow in my life? So he says there's this wonderful formula, and so it's very simple. PTFAR. You're welcome. So keep that in mind. So what he says is what that means is programming leads to thoughts, and thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings lead to action, and action leads to results. Simple, right? So a fun example of how he's talking about, he does these workshops and all this. There's a whole program around this. But he had a gentleman who came in, and he's like, I'm not sure why I'm here, but I'm going to take this workshop. I'm kind of making $500,000 a year. And so Bacher says to him, well, how long have you made that? And he said, last 7 years. He said, oh, okay, now I get why you're here. And so he said, okay, well, why not $2 million a year? I don't know, So anyway, he goes through the workshop, all that sort of thing. They meet up a year or so later, and he's like, I did it. $2 million. Now, he said, cool. He said, my only regret is I didn't set it for 10. And so I'm back. Now, you're all thinking, no, sometimes people think, well, that's just too much. These are clues, right? But he went on to tell the story. Part of what I kind of loved about this story is his intention for that money was he was absolutely committed to making a difference about eradicating AIDS in Africa. And realized that with $10 million, he could do so much greater work. And had the most important realization that the limit to what he could create was not what is possible in the world, but what was possible in his own mind. You see, unity teaches us that our world is a reflection of our belief. But because it's our belief, and we've lived it with a long time, we could call that programming, that we've been programmed to perceive reality in a certain way. We learned messages about money or about love or about relationships or all of that stuff. And then we confuse reality with our belief, not realizing that it is only our belief that not only attracts into our experience our good, but also filters out the other things. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it? I marvel at the power of our minds, the power of our being, and yet we don't recognize it. We don't realize that we have this powerful tool, so we go back into the old way of thinking that thinks it goes the other way, that results lead to action, that leads to feelings, that lead to thoughts, that lead to programming. You see, I always say, if you're in this teaching, you got to decide. I say everybody has to decide if you're going to be an innie or an outie. If you're an innie, you live from the inward out into the world. Most of the world is living as the out in. Sometimes people grow up thinking that someday they're going to meet a perfect mate. And one kiss, and happily ever after. Someday I hope to meet that person. But for many of us, we realize a relationship takes some work. It takes some evolution. It takes some growing. It takes some becoming, See, we grew up with these ideas of how things are, or people that are prosperous are somehow lucky, or all of that stuff. We just have all of this stuff. When they're in this opportunity, this is why I love our teaching, is that we get to keep exploring. And is that true for me now? What was true for me in 2018 was wonderful. It served me. But is that what I want to carry into 2019? Or am I really willing to re-examine and look and say, who do I want to be in this new year? There's a visioning process that talks about not what, it's fine to set goals. It's great to set goals. Better to set goals than not. But to realize that behind those goals needs to be the intention. If all we do is set a goal, so we say, okay, well, this year I'm going to make $100,000 or $200,000, whatever it is, right? And we set that. We can go to work and we can create that and we manifest it. But if we haven't looked behind that, then it may be that our life looks exactly the way it did, which is to better cash flow, right? But if we look at not only the intention behind what we're setting our goals around, it is those intentions, that is the why, the purpose behind it, that really drives us. For me, in this church, this is not about how many people can we have on Sunday and all that sort of thing. It's about how many lives can we touch. How many people can we help remind them of who they are? How can we be a powerful force for good in the world that helps people understand these principles that seem so common to us but are kind of radical for a lot of people in the world? So that's always what drives me, is can we serve, can we fulfill our mission, can we help transform and lift up lives through what we do here? It's a beautiful thing. So there's a wonderful passage in Mark. I come to it time and again. I didn't understand it as a child. A lot of things I didn't understand as a child. A lot of things I didn't understand as an adult. There's a lot of things I still don't understand, but I keep working on it, right? But in this wonderful little passage in Mark 2:21 and 22, he says, no person, I'm going to upgrade the language, sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. Otherwise, the patch pulls away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear results. No person puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost, and the skin as well. But one puts new wine into fresh wineskins. So if one of your goals for 2019 is making wine, helpful tools. Although we don't really use a lot of wineskin in our current process, more often bottles. But here's the spiritual lesson behind this. Because back in the day, when one was making wine, we didn't have bottles, and so we used, shall we call them innards, or wineskins, right? And the wine was processed and put into the bottle, and we know that then it ferments, right? And when it ferments, it expands. If you put new wine into an old skin, the skin explodes. What does that have to do with consciousness? What I believe we're trying to understand here is that sometimes we're trying to put a new consciousness into an old belief system. And we wonder why it falls apart. You see, sometimes you'll see people and they'll make a change in their life. They'll lose the weight, they'll do the thing, and then you see them 6 months later and they're back to where they were, and you judge them harshly. Because we would never do that. I'm kidding, don't judge. Right? Right, because we've all done it. And what we realize is that we tried to put a new consciousness into an old belief system, and through our effort, through our will, through our sheer willpower, we can make change, but unless we have the inner transformation, we always revert back to our old way of being. Right? That's what makes this work difficult. I mean, I wish all we had to do is say, here's the affirmation, say it once a day, and it's done. And then go with your stinking thinking all the rest of the day. You're cool. It's all good, right? Because you got your affirmation. In fact, if you want me to bless that affirmation, I'm available, right? Actually, that's how the Catholic Church got into trouble, because they charged for those things. But anyways, I'll do it for you for free. But it's, right? Unless we're willing to incorporate the consciousness of the affirmation into our awareness and understanding, nothing changes, right? So as I look at this year, and as I do every year, how do I need to grow? How do I need to grow as a human being? In what way, if what they tell me is true and that my current reality is a reflection of my current belief, then I'm going to spend less time on trying to get the universe to be different, and perhaps more time on my own spiritual work, my own growth, my own willingness to allow myself to be supported. The universe delights in its self-expression. Did you know this? I want you to hear this. The universe delights in its self-expression. That is the, if you will, the cosmic force of life. That in all of the life forms, there's a divine impulsion, whether it's a seed becoming a plant or whether it's a human being becoming more fulfilled about themselves. There's an inner impulsion for life to know itself more fully. So I believe God delights in its self-expression. I believe this divine presence delights when we wake up, when we are living fully. Now, sometimes we have to let go of some programming. Sometimes we don't want to be the first person in line. As whatever, whatever, right? Because nice people would go, right? You see that, but so you just start looking at, okay, why is this? Who said? Who said it was so, and is it still true? A lot of things that we've gained, the knowledge we've gained along our lifetime, have helped us. They served us. Sometimes we were threatened by reality, and we found defensive systems that helped protect us. I certainly did. As a young child, I developed defense systems to protect me from what was happening in my world. The problem was when I was 30 years old, when I was still playing out those 10-year-old beliefs, it was no longer a protection, it was a limitation. As an adult, what does it say? When I was a child, I operated like a child, and when I became an adult, I operated like an adult. I learned to take responsibility for my life being exactly the way it is. I learned to take responsibility for both the good that was showing up and the seemingly not so good. And I also got to know that if I didn't like it, I could change it. Or I could learn to love it. Sometimes that's the blessing as well. Right? I say that all the time about how when we recognize, when we go into prayer and we know spiritual truth and reality, one of two things will change. One is the circumstances will change. Two, our perception will change. And sometimes the greater healing is the shift in perceptions. I was reading, had a little bit more downtime. For me, December has 7 services, so that's kind of a busyness, but there's also less going on in terms of the day-to-day stuff in the church, so a little downtime. And so I picked up a few books. And one, because I have lots, I rarely buy books anymore, but people give me books. And it's such a luxury, because I'm always like, what do I got to say next week? This was good. What are we going to say next week, right? But I picked up a lovely book, and you could pick one up too. It's a wonderful book called The Prosperity Code. And it's written by some dude named Alan Batten, who most of you know behind the scenes, not in front. But it's a wonderful, wonderful. I finally had a chance to really look through it and go, wow, there's just some great gems and insights. And he talks about the same thing, about how that we need to shift our thinking. We need to open our way of being. And he says that, we have to practice gratitude. We can't be whining and complaining about our lives all the time and expect it that is creating the space for something good to happen. Now, I don't know if Alan wrote that specifically for me, but I got it. So thank you, Alan. I'm glad you didn't use my name. But, right, you get these little gems of information. It's like we have to keep practicing gratitude all of the time. It's okay to have life be uncomfortable. It's okay to want to change, but still from that state of gratitude for all of the blessings in our life. It's a beautiful thing. So, my friends, I'm excited as we move into this new year. I'm visioning and envisioning a lot of things, and we're having a lot of conversations about what's next for us as a community. And how do we further our evolvement into this mission-centric idea that we started 2 years ago before I was even here. And that vision that I stepped into and then have been shepherding into the next phase. That we're on track in many ways for what we're creating, that is a dynamic community that is not bound by one person, but is emanating through all of us with a shared vision and mission, how we can make a difference in the world. Very, very wonderful. So I'm looking forward to being complete with this year. Looking forward to tomorrow night as we really formally transition, when we release that which no longer serves us, die in our chakras, and we set a new intention for what is next. Having said that, I want us to realize and remember that much of our spiritual growth is about letting go, releasing. That old programming will not serve you in getting what you want now. So, we may want to reprogram. We may want to adjust the thermostat. We may want to spend more time in spiritual practice, remembering who we are and living from that state. It's going to be an amazing year. Let us pray. As we simply recognize and acknowledge this one life, this one power, this divine something, whether we call it God or the 10,000 other names, we realize that there is a presence and a power that is expressing itself in, through, and as all of creation, that is expressing through all things. And so we open our hearts to who we are. We allow the words of the master teacher, Jesus, and indeed the others, to recognize that there is indeed a Christ presence within us. It is the wholeness and fullness who we are. And as we've been celebrating this season of light all month long, we are reminded that we are here to allow our light to shine brightly. We are here to not only lift our own lives, but to lift the lives of others. We are here to bring forth that powerful something, seeking its recognition through us. So we declare for ourselves that which is true, that we are whole, perfect beings, and we allow that wholeness to reveal itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We remember that we are abundant beings, participating in the one life, joyously giving, graciously receiving of the infinite bounty. We know that love is indeed the only reality. And so where there appears to be the absence of love, we choose forgiveness. We choose to see the truth. How very grateful I am for all of the blessings of this year. Those that came easily and those that challenged me. And how grateful I am for this spiritual community, for this divine idea called Unity of Charlotte. unfolding perfectly. We are indeed blessed, and so we extend our blessing to our brothers and sisters, not only in Charlotte, but in our state, in our world, on our planet. We hold that high vision for a planet at peace, for a world that works for all. And as my custom and my tradition, I bless all priests, rabbis, ministers, teachers of all faiths, for I know there are many pathways to the divine, and so I honor and celebrate them all. For all of these blessings and so many more, I simply give thanks. I allow it to be so, and so it is. Amen.